are we actually making a big deal of what Obama said? He stated the obvious, isn't it? I mean, it could apply to any part of the world. It's stating the obvious when you say that religious intolerance is something that needs to be avoided. Are we overreacting in saying that, look, he's pointing fingers at India, he's making remarks to the Prime Minister, he's teaching India a lesson?
Well, Vishnu, I think you need to contextualize what the President of the United States of America said. And if twice in the span of 10 days, somebody decides to underscore the specter of religious intolerance in India, it's not a mere coincidence. The fact that when he held his town hall style meeting at the Shreveport Auditorium, he made it very clear that the only threat to India is from within. And then he went and underscored it at the National Prayer Breakfast, saying that some of the acts of religious intolerance would actually put Mahatma Gandhi to shame. I don't think the head of another state could have been more explicit while couching it in diplomatisque. So therefore, there is an obvious message out here, and the obvious message should make us introspect and hang our heads in shame as Indians, because India has really been the beacon of tolerance. We gave the concept of Sarvdharm Sambhav to the world, and for us to listen to the lecture or listen to homilies from someone else, primarily because of the politics of religious polarization over the past 6 months, which has been pursued by the ruling dispensation, does not really augur very well for India.
Nalin, is it time perhaps for the Prime Minister to actually refer to all of these things?
Well, I think the government is doing what it should.
No, but why the silence from the Prime Minister?
We can choose. I mean, coming about a model of silence, as I've said it earlier, and I don't wish to politicize it that way, but we've not really had a very effusive Prime Minister in the last 10 years. Mr. Modi has spoken on various issues. So he may or may not, we have to leave it. No, of course we take it seriously. But whereas with regard to the Congress party, reading everything with a motive that perhaps the BJP or people connected to the BJP are driving such attacks would be absolutely ludicrous. Because certainly nobody stands for this kind of violence. Nobody appreciates violence. In fact, my concerns are whether it's being motivated by any reason just because there's been a change of government. And I'm not laying any allegations on the Congress.
No, but Manish,
I'm just simply saying, I'm not laying it on
Obama is not saying, he's not talking about the BJP. He's made a larger point over here. Are you saying that he's trying to, why do you say he's trying to target the BJP or perhaps Narendra Modi? Religious intolerance, whatever we've seen, has been there for a long time. It keeps popping up. It's a tragedy in this country. It's a reality. Is this necessarily only about the BJP? Manish, can you hear me?
Vishnu, whom is that question?
For you, Manish.
Is that question directed at me?
Yes.
Well, the reason for that is very simple. That majority communalism and minority communalism are two sides of the same coin, and they feed on each other. And if you were to rewind back to the 80s, to the politics around the entire Mandir issue, the Bharatiya Janata Party has really been in the forefront of religious polarization in the country. Let's not forget that it is this very party which demolished the Babri Masjid in 1992. It's this very party which presided over the pogrom in Gujarat. It's this very party whose leaders talk about the love jihad. It's this very party which is practicing, or its acolytes are practicing Ghar Wapsi. It's this very party which does not react when churches are desecrated. So it does not require rocket science to figure out as to whom the reference is to.
Okay, Nalin, go ahead.
Perhaps a selective view to history is damaging. We can start from 47. I can tell you about the 1967 riots in Ahmedabad. The BJP was nowhere there. I can remind you of 1984, and we can discuss the riots on any program you like. But basically, I can't replace the morbidity in the Congress party, because absolutely grasping for an ideology, for leadership. So they claw at anything negative that comes and immediately see an opportunity to somehow have a resonance of some political stand. And that's why they level these allegations. But that's for the Congress party to work out. We reject it. I think as far as we are concerned, these are aberrations. Our government is not there on this agenda. The Congress can hope that it wants to revive itself on such morbidity, but good luck to them.
Ambassador Karju, do you believe this was
Mr. Kohli, one second, may I come in for a moment, Vishnu?
If they are going to
Do you reject the do you reject the assertion that your party demolished the Babri Mosque?
No, Mr.
Do you reject the assertion
I'll answer that.
the Gujarat program which happened to you on your watch?
I'll answer it straight. We both are sitting in Delhi, and I would ask the same counter question. Do you reject the fact that about 3,000 to 5,000 Sikhs were massacred in a genocide, probably far worse than anything India has seen after 1947? So we can start settling these political scores and discussing the riots of India. But what when President Obama makes a general
if you ask
I've just simply pulled it back. You are repeating
why don't
old
you
lines.
answer the question
So am I,
which
Mr.
I've
Tiwari. We both can throw this back to each other. And the
Okay,
fact remains, what Mr. Obama
I want to get an
is not
independent
that
voice
clear.
over here. I want to get.
I'm also quoting you history.
Let me just get an independent voice, Ambassador Karju. It's quite obvious that Obama, when he was over here, didn't raise this issue. He went back and he's raised this issue. Is this a deliberate effort at making a point?
Look, no country in the world today is immune from scrutiny of its human rights records, including the United States. It takes
But
place.
you're speaking about India.
No, it takes place periodically in the Human Rights Council itself. Now, he is today not talking of India, but alone. He spoke of religious intolerance worldwide, including in the United States. The question is, what is the reality in India and what is the perception? The reality, I believe, is far removed from what President Obama pointed to.
What is the perception he has?
The perception he has is because of a few stray incidents, because they are stray. If you see the totality of India, if you see the size of India, if you see the Indian population, we are 1/6 of humanity. We are not an intolerant society. We are not a bigoted society. Yes, certain stray incidents are taking place, and each incident is regrettable, and I believe one is too many. But let's not exaggerate this situation, and therefore let's retain a balance. Now, the perception.
Two remarks by Obama
that is what I said. As far as the perception is concerned, it is not only the government. I believe it is Indian polity and Indian society that needs to act collectively to redress this situation. And I deeply regret that between the Congress and the BJP, both the representatives will forgive me, it always becomes this kind of a totally ridiculous tirade of recalling history. Here is the President of the United States having a perception about Indian society and Indian polity. The country must come together and reject this charge because it is wrong.
Atishi, let me ask you that. This is the election time now. I mean, everybody is scoring political points. If you leave that aside, don't you think rather than criticize the BJP or Arvind Kejriwal saying, you know, Barack Obama and Narendra Modi are friends, so maybe that question should be directed there. Isn't it time for all our political parties to reject this perception, as Ambassador Karju suggests?
No, I think that, Vishnu, the fact that this perception exists across the world and has got strengthened in the recent past is something that we do need to look at. And the reason we do need to look at it is because there has been a brand of communal, regressive, retrograde politics that has been coming from the BJP and many of the groups associated with it. Just in the span in the last couple of months, you have had things like Ghar Wapsi, you have had things like asking for a temple for Nathuram Godse, you have had the Ramzade, Haramzade statement being made by Sadhvi Niranjan Jyoti, you have Sakshi Maharaj saying that women should have 4 children. Now, these are not just mere stray examples. These increasingly represent a pattern, and this pattern definitely needs to be looked at. In fact, I would say that in addition to this kind of communalization of society, we are also seeing this kind of anti-women, retrograde, obscurantist views which says that women shouldn't wear jeans, that women shouldn't use mobile phones.
This has been the case for many years.
Is definitely
so there are separate issues over here.
I just have a small comment.
Go ahead.
Just a very small comment. I'm glad that Atishi ji...
No, Vishnu, I think the reason that this has related to each other is because various comments from these groups associated with the BJP have definitely increased in the past few months ever since the BJP has come to power in the central government.
Okay.
So you have all these fringe elements
he needs to reply to that
associated with this party,
yes, go ahead.
which definitely it seems that the party can't control.
Atishi, you made your point, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I mean, I have to admit that my party is really not as secular as the Aam Aadmi party, seeking Mr. Bukhari's first support and then running away when they found that there was a reaction to it. And certainly we can't practice women's security the way Mr. Somnath Bharti once displayed. So my good luck to your model, please. You will have to excuse us. And I'm glad you laugh at it, Atishi ji, because a lot of people look at it very seriously.
Actually, the reason I laugh is, the reason I laugh at it is because it was the Jugalbandi of Shahi Imam Bukhari statement and Arun Jaitley's press conference, which I think was the most stark and representative.
That might require psychiatric analysis because Alka Lamba is not in my party. Alka Lamba is not in my party, ma'am. She's in your party.
Can we not focus?
So I just thought I'll bring it to your notice. So I'm glad you can laugh about it. Denial is also a good way. Ostriches also put their heads in the sand. But that's up to you.
Ambassador Kachu had a point. Go ahead.
Well, I really don't.
Sir, actually, the thing is, we actually do issue-based politics.
Atishi, let this not be a slanging match. Quite clearly linked to what's happening in Delhi right now. The ambassador has a larger point about the perception of India.
I do think that the incidents that have taken place, which my co-panelists are referring to, are regrettable. They are wrong. They should not take place. But please see the totality. Is there a pattern? We are, after all, 1/6 of humanity. We are 125 crores strong. Is there religious intolerance? If that was so, and if our society was so bigoted, we would not stay together even for a day.
But let me ask you this point.
Yes.
Do you believe it is wrong for India or perhaps the Prime Minister to have stayed silent?
Well, that's a political issue.
No, it's a foreign policy issue.
No, left to me, I do think it would not be wrong for the Prime Minister to speak at some stage. The timing of it is for him to decide. It is for him to decide at what stage the Prime Minister wishes to speak.
Absolutely.
But yes, he must address this situation if there is a section of people in India that is getting worried about the trends in our society, and I believe there aren't really any serious trends or clear trends at the moment. The Prime Minister can't stay silent.
That's debatable. It depends on who you ask that question to.
Two non-partisan points I just want to add to Mr. Kachu.
I'll come to you. I want to go across to Manish. Manish, you know, the point that the ambassador is making, the larger issue about how in a situation like this, India needs to stand together. How, if you look at the actual context of the speech made by President Obama as well, it's not necessarily pointing fingers at India. Why do you believe that this was the BJP which was necessarily targeted? Because that's the central argument that you raise.
Well, Vishnu, with great respect to Ambassador Kaju, I would like to totally disagree with him. You know, how many times has it happened that a visiting dignitary has pointed to religious intolerance in India? How many times has it happened that India has been singled out to be included in the honors list of religious intolerance at the National Prayer Breakfast meeting of the US President, which has been going on for 66 years now? So therefore, you know, these are not aberrations. There is concern, there is a genuine concern across the world that we are increasingly moving towards a specter of intolerance, and that intolerance is being patronized by the government of the day, which is doing nothing to try and control what they call fringe elements, but is actually their mainstream. So therefore, you know, that is unfortunately a part of their DNA. Yes, you know, they have been doing this tweedlum and tweedly, that while some parts of the government talk about development, you know, other people do this religious polarization, but it does not require very much of intelligence to see through this game. And therefore, that's why in the span of 10 days, you know, you've had, you know, 2 missives delivered to you on religious intolerance.
Okay, Nalin wants to reply.
So these are not stray incidents, and let's not get into the statistical jugglery that we are 1/6 of humanity and we are 1.2 billion
that's
people.
A fact.
And
how can Manish deny facts?
ये तो
मनीष भाई आप तो facts deny करना चाहते हैं. We are 125 crores.
Well, I mean, Ambassador Kaju, please do not try and condone acts of religious intolerance.
Who is condoning it?
We are 1 crore or we are 1.2 billion crores.
Well, go ahead. First, Ambassador Kaju made a fair point about it. We can't be demanding of the Prime Minister's statements. When the Prime Minister, if he chooses to do so, he will choose the timing himself when he wants to deliver that. The second part is, of course, it is an isolated incident. Now let's say, getting back to the political debate, I mean, I really can't solve the Congress party's, absolute focus on somehow finding fault with India just because they are not there. That's how monarchies behave. When they're out of power, they will be like fish out of water. And sorry, I mean, I'm sorry.
Exactly
at least our Prime Minister wasn't dining with somebody when 47 happened. Or, when Mrs. Gandhi died, we didn't have a Prime Minister saying a tree falls and justifying it. So please, I'm giving it back to you. It's not statistical jugglery. You can wash as much dirty linen you want. India is far stronger than how you would like to see it.
But what stops the Prime Minister from making a remark now?
Well, if it's not directed to India,
it's
and when the finance minister,
it's directed to India.
The finance minister, 1 minute, let me put it, when the finance minister, the information broadcasting minister is on the record to have answered on it, are we going to now put the whole cabinet out there from the top to the bottom to start replying on a day-to-day basis?
As the spokesperson of the BJP, that the BJP condemns this statement?
Well, I mean, certainly the Prime Minister, the Finance Minister has put out two things specifically. It's an aberration. We have a rich cultural history of tolerance.
And
this is an aberration. And the best example of religious tolerance was sitting on the same table as President Obama. It can't be more blunt than that in 3 statements.
All right, we are completely out of time. Ambassador, I'm sorry I couldn't come back to you. We are completely out of time. The larger issue is what was the timing of the statement is curious. What sort of message does it give to India, and what sort of image does India actually have with the United States? I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. It's time now for us to take this short break.